I would like to welcome everyone to this virtual meeting of the Council, which is being held under the virtual meeting regulations using Microsoft. I have read out this stream of words many times. I think you all understand the terms under which we're holding the meeting. Are there any questions before I start? Right.
Nothing in chat, Chairman.
It's been suggested that I should say or instigate a minute's silence in memory of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. He did come to Weston. He did have a dinner at the council's expense in the Winter Gardens. He was a man of many parts, and his accomplishments were many. Having read about his childhood, I can only marvel that he turned out the way that he did, all without the aid of modern social services and counselling. I suspect they would have destroyed the likes of me. He was the rock on which Her Majesty the Queen built her reign and travelled thousands of miles to promote the prosperity of this country. His life was dedicated to public service and should be a model to those of us who follow in the same path. But I suspect that his greatest and most enduring legacy will be the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, which brought a sense of adventure and achievement to many thousands of young people. It was a privilege to know of him, and we trust that he will rest in peace and long be remembered. I will now invite you to join with me in observing a minute's silence in his memory. We will now move on into the meeting proper, and I will ask if there are any apologies, please.
Chairman, the only apologies I've had in advance are from Councillor Gregor, who cannot join us for technical IT reasons.
Thank you very much. I will then move to the first item on the agenda, which is the election of a new chairman. Are there any nominations, please?
Councillor Gibbons, Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to nominate my friend and colleague, Councillor Richard Westwood. He's a really dedicated elected member. He's been involved in local government here and in another area of the country for many, many years. He's absolutely passionate about local government, about community issues. And in his real professional life, he's spent many, many years involved with children and young people. I know that as chairman, he will do us proud and he will represent this authority with passion and dedication, because it's something he really, really wants to do. And I know that he has a commitment as chairman to direct his focus as far as possible towards young people and perhaps their mental health. I know that his particular charitable focuses are to be decided later. But I think the key thing about being a chairman for a local authority like this is to really want to do it, to have that drive and that real enthusiasm to represent us. And I know Richard has that in spades. So I hope that I will find a seconder, because he will be a wonderful chairman. Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Cato. Are there any other nominations? In which case, I will ask for all those in favour of Councillor Richard Westwood to be the chairman of the council. Please, sure.
Chairman, I'm seeing many hands in support. If I could just ask, is there anybody not in support? I'm getting no hands, Chairman. That's passed.
Therefore, I declare Councillor Westwood elected chairman of the council coming year. Councillor Westwood.
Thank you, Councillor Shobland. I'm very, very honoured to have been appointed, and I will try and live up to what people's expectations clearly are of me. I will try and say everything to you in one portion this evening to get things through as quickly as possible. At the end of this unusually lengthy COVID municipal year, which has comprised nearly 23 months, an unusual year, I'm looking forward to helping to take the council and North Somerset back towards a more normal way of doing things, possibly in terms of face-to-face meetings when the time is judged to be right. Some of my colleagues were discussing whether normal was a thing that could ever be again just before this meeting, and let's see if we can get something close to a bit more I don't know, day-to-day, face-to-face. I think that's what people want. Just looking back briefly, I'd like to say how proud I have been of the way in which our staff and other individuals across North Somerset have stepped forward to help to get the local community through the COVID emergency. Numerous groups have sprung into being, too numerous to mention and too invidious to single people out. But doubtless there will be a time for remembering and a time for honouring people. I'm married to a North Somerset Council officer, and I can vouch for the professionalism of her and her colleagues that they've demonstrated right through this COVID emergency. Anyway, looking forward to the future, and a little bit of housekeeping, as it were. I intend to, and forward notice, I intend to hold a civic service in September of this year, and instead of a chairman's evening in October, because there's no Western Carnival, I propose to hold a chairman's Christmas party in early December. Both of these, of course, if everything goes well as far as COVID restrictions are concerned. We shall see. We shall look forward. One final piece of information: I intend to appoint the Reverend Fran Binding, who is Vicar of All Saints, Kingston Seymour, as my chaplain for the year. And that's the domestic business done. I will now turn again to the retiring chairman, Councillor Shopland, and just express my very sincere thanks on behalf of the council for David Shopland for his chairmanship over the last 23 months. Efficiency of chairman, but always with humour and a twinkle in the eye, which is a difficult thing to do remotely, David. So well done. And I would say that I will try and emulate him in both departments. So I'll hand over now to Councillor Shopland to address the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're really too kind. But on my way here, I did something very foolish. As I looked into a mirror, and when I saw my flowing locks, I wasn't sure whether I was trying to assume the mantle of Ken Dodd, Boris Johnson, or Lloyd George. So I sat down and thought about it. While sitting, I thought about my recent time as chairman of this council and wondered what I had done for it during my year of office. On reflection, maybe not very much, except for making visits, and they've been curtailed, maintaining a small regular exercise routine by making you all stand up when addressing the chamber, and possibly sorting out how to ask a question. But together as a body, we have achieved a great deal. We have united, worked together, and shared a common goal, that of doing the best that we can for our electorate. I will always be grateful for you making me your chairman. It's been an honour to serve you and the people of North Somerset for the past 2 years. Thanks are due to many people for the support, common sense and advice that they have given me, and the work that has been done for me, especially by the staff and officers of this council. Anita, the chairman's officer, and Sue Efford have helped wherever they can. But my wife has been the star, as she has always been in the background working hard, getting me there on time, seeing I have my tie on beneath the chain, that I polish my shoes, endured my tantrums, given support and consolation when needed, and neither expected or received any great reward. I could not have done the job of chairman without her unstinting aid. So to end, I will just say this. As a council, we have come a long way since May 2019. We are organised and on our way. And I'm sure that under our new chairman, our progress will continue. And that in May 2023, this council will be seen to have been a great council that served its people well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Shupland, and doubtless we will be calling upon you for your words of wisdom at some point in the future. Right, on we go then to election of vice chairman for 2021-22. Can I have any nominations for vice chairman of the council, please?
Councillor Petty, chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Petty.
Thank you. I would very much like to nominate my friend and colleague, Councillor Karen Haverson. I believe that she has been extremely active since being elected those past 2 years ago. She is an active member on scrutiny panels, including the strategic growth panels, the HOSP panel, the adults and social care panel, and the appointments panel. She has the ward of Banwell within her area, so she's been very active in the work for the impacts around the Banwell bypass, and she's been very active in her ward in Churchill as well. She has a strong background with a medical background in medical research, and so this year has proved exceptionally helpful with immunology being part of her work. So what a year to have that information available to the council. Since her retirement, she has been a volunteer with the Citizens Advice Bureau and has continued to work tirelessly with community projects. I believe that she would be an excellent partner to the chairman in being vice chair and to work collaboratively and continue the work to be an open, fairer and greener council.
Thank you, Councillor Petty. Do I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Crosby, chairman.
Councillor Crosby. Councillor Crosby.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Yes, I would second Karen as deputy chair.
Thanks very much. Are there any other nominations? No. In which case, we can move to a vote.
Any members wish to indicate against? Seeing none, any abstentions? No, in which case carried, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'd like to ask Councillor Havison as Vice Chair to address the meeting, please.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much to our previous chair and our new chair as well. And thank you all for your trust and confidence in me. I must admit, as a relatively new kid on the block, I'm sure there's a big learning curve for me ahead, and I will endeavour to step up to the mark. I'd also like to thank Councillor Petty and Councillor Crosby for their proposing me and seconding me. So I will try my best. That's all I can promise. But I will definitely have quite a bit to learn, and I'm trusting that our new chair, Councillor Westwood, will support me in this and not stretch me too far too quickly. I have a lot to learn. So thank you very much.
I'll do my best, Councillor Havison. Thank you very much. Before we move on to item 4, public participation, we need apparently to take a roll call of councillors present. So I'll hand over to Nick Brain to conduct that.
Thank you, Chairman. We took apologies for absence, but I didn't take the roll call at the start because I noted a number of members were still joining us. We're a little bit into the meeting now, so perhaps we could just do the formal roll call for the minutes. If I can call each councillor's name, if you could just respond if you're present, please. Councillor Applin, I know he was going to be late. I still think he hasn't joined us. Councillor Ashton.
Present.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Bird.
Present.
Councillor Bridger.
Present.
Councillor Bryant. Saw Councillor Bryant join.
Yeah.
Yes.
Councillor Butte.
Present.
Councillor Caniford.
Present.
Councillor Cartman.
Present.
Councillor Cato.
Present.
Councillor Charles.
Present.
Councillor Cherry.
Present.
Councillor Clayton.
Present.
Councillor Codling.
Present.
Councillor Cole.
Present.
Councillor Crew.
Here.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Present.
Councillor Connolly.
Present.
Councillor Crosby.
Present.
Councillor Davies.
Present.
Councillor Gibbons.
It is a fact, I know.
Present.
We know Councillor Gregor is not able to be with us. Councillor Griggs.
Present.
Councillor Harley.
Present.
Councillor Havison is with us.
Yes.
Indeed. Councillor Hearn.
Present.
Councillor Hitchins.
He's there.
I thought I saw him indeed. Councillor Hogg.
Present.
Councillor Holland.
Present.
Councillor Jacobs.
Present.
Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Keating.
Present.
Councillor Leigh Morgan.
Present.
Councillor McQuillan.
Present.
Councillor Parker.
Present.
Councillor Payne.
Present.
Councillor Pepperell. Councillor Petty.
Present.
Councillor Pilgrim.
Present.
Councillor Porter.
Present.
Councillor Richardson.
Present.
Councillor Shopland is with us. Councillor Snaden.
Present.
Councillor Solomon.
Present.
Councillor Tonkin.
Present.
Councillor Treadaway. Councillor Tucker.
Present.
Councillor Westwood is present. Councillor Willis.
Present.
Present.
Thank you, Chairman.
Can I be heard?
Thank you. Yeah, who's that?
Councillor Bryant, am I? Oh, I must be on then.
We can hear you, Councillor Bryant. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can you, Peter. You're okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Back to item 4.
Right. So on with item 4, public participation. and the deadline for this was 12 noon on Monday. 4 submissions have been received and have been published as supplementary papers on Monday. They are taken as read and will be referred to the relevant executive member or addressed later on the agenda as appropriate. I think we can move on.
Indeed, thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. Right, we move on then to item 5, petitions to be presented by members. And again, the deadline was 12 noon on Monday. We have the first petition from Councillor Keating. And I will invite Councillor Keating to present his petition on changes to the A368 in Churchill. Councillor Keating.
Thanks, Chair, and congratulations on your election and appointment. This petition is signed by 63 residents of the Dinghurst Lane in Churchill, which represents about 99% of the people living along that stretch of road. It's a stretch of road that's becoming increasingly busy with the increasing amount of housing developments in our villages, and potentially will become much busier with the impact of the Banwell bypass potentially increasing traffic through our village. It's a stretch of road with no footpath and an increasing amount of commercial traffic as well as cars. As a council that's seeking to increase active travel and walking to school, this piece of roadway does not allow for that. So the residents, with the support of myself, are requesting the council to look at how that stretch of road can be made safer for those seeking to walk or cycle through our community. I'm pleased to say that following a visit by myself and Councillor Richardson, officers have started to look into what can be done. But this petition indicates the strength of feeling amongst residents, and I would encourage officers and the executive to continue to put all efforts into coming up with practical and deliverable solutions to making sure that we avoid any incidents along that stretch of road and make it an area that's promotes and proactive for safer and active travel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keating. I've got to say the slightly gnomic phrase here that the petition will be referred to the relevant executive member, because I'm not aware of who the relevant executive member is because of items that will be dealt with later in this agenda. So there you go. So on we go then to the second petition, which is from Councillor Catherine Gibbons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your election. Yes, this is a petition I'm presenting on behalf of one of the residents from mine and Councillor Tucker's ward, Mr. Simon Harrison Morse, and it's a petition to ask North Somerset Council to celebrate the diverse community we have in, well, in North Somerset, but in this case particularly Weston-super-Mare, by having a Walk with Pride rainbow crossing in Weston Town Centre. I know there was a similar petition from Councillor Hugh James a while back, but there's a huge desire in the community in Weston to make reference to the importance of Pride in Weston, because in 2023, it should have been earlier, but because of COVID, it's been delayed. In 2023, Weston will host UK Pride, which is a huge thing for the town and a huge thing for North Somerset, actually. It, I think, is one of the sort of key points for our cultural strategy, that we should be able to hold a national event like this. So I think I can agree with the residents who signed this, 379 of them, that to have a rainbow crossing somewhere in Weston Town Centre would be fantastic. It would give us a great message to the of inclusivity, and I think it would cheer the place up, to be honest. In the petition, he speaks about the crossing on the High Street leading towards Grove Park as an ideal place, because it is directly part of the Pride March route. I won't read through the petition. I hope you've all had a chance to look at it. And I also commend it to North Somerset Council to not only agree, but to fund the painting of the crossing of the colours of the Pride flag in Western Town Centre. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbons. And again, the petition will be referred to the relevant executive member. So we move on to item 6, declaration of disclosable pecuniary interest. Over to the solicitor. Are there any?
I've not been notified of any, Chairman, and I don't see any hands up for people wanting to declare any.
Right, in which case we will move on to item 7, which are the minutes of our last meeting on the 23rd of February 2021. And these are for approval. So I will hand over to the leader of the council, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Richard, and my congratulations too on your appointment, and I wish you a very successful year. I would like to propose approval of the minutes from the 23rd of February and look for a seconder. I think Councillor Tonkin is putting his hand up.
Yeah, but yes, I've seen a number of hands, Councillor Tonkin, Councillor Petty.
Right, so we're okay then to move on, are we?
Yes, just any votes against accepting the minutes?
Can't see
Being no hands. That's carried, Chairman. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much. So on we go then to item 8, motions by members, under standing order number 14. And this first one is from Councillor Charles, and it's local authorities mental health challenge. So over to you, Councillor Charles.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and amongst others, can I pass my congratulations to you for your appointment, and also to Councillor Havison as well. Speaking to this motion, the words emergency are used a lot to define many things, but from doing research for this motion, I can tell you that collectively, as a community, as a country, individually, and as a planet, we have a mental health emergency. I won't go through all the things listed in the motion, but some of the things that I found here shocked me immensely. 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem in any given year, according to the World Health Organization. Mental ill health costs 105 billion each year in England alone. It is one of the highest causes of suicide in men under 35. Those figures are, quite frankly, fellow councillors, shocking. And the pandemic that we have been through over the last year has only exacerbated those problems with mental health. Some of the figures I see here is that the Centre for Mental Health forecasts a rise in poor mental health to 8.5 million people. This is a rise with 3.2 million people joining who have previously not declared a mental health issue. This has put great strains on already overstrained mental health service provision, not only in this district, but across the country. As someone myself who suffers from a severe form of anxiety disorder, a mental health condition, I know how difficult it is to access proper mental health services. I know when I've been at a time of need, I have been told there is up to a 6-month wait or more for mental health services. Quite frankly, this is not acceptable, fellow councillors, and this is something we should be campaigning about. I was lucky to be able to source things from other areas. Other people are not so lucky. The pandemic as well has also put a strain on our young people. The charity Young Minds found that 67% of young people surveyed aged 13 to 25 believe the pandemic will have a long-term effect on their mental health. We can do so much as a local authority, and by signing up and joining the nearly 160 other local authorities that have signed up to this challenge, we can place mental health slap bang in the heart of everything we do as an authority. And there is so much that we can do individually and collectively. The chairman talked earlier about the return to normality. I talk to many of my constituents on a daily basis who suffer anxiety, depression, and other mental health conditions related to the trauma that we have collectively faced this year, who fear a return to the workplace, who are fearful of the return to crowds and those sense of normality, and put a mental health strain on them. We need to ensure that we're supporting those members of the community that feel those strains. We need to have, as a council with our partners, plans around how positive mental health can be put into our planning and housing, developing communities that enable us to have good, positive mental health and access to the services we need. We need to work with academies on the education we provide our children, and most importantly, the play as well, so that we, in this recovery time from such a trauma to our community, can actually have an agenda that helps our children prosper. We need to look at our parks and open spaces. The pandemic has only shown to us the value of open green spaces and areas for play and recreation, and we need to consider the mental health aspects of that in those areas. In our communications as well, we as a local authority need to consider how we communicate with our wider public and the mental health impact that it can have within our communities. And individually, as councillors as well, we can do so much as figureheads in our community. I am so proud to be in a council where it's not an example here, but so much of our politics is defined by hate. It is defined by a media that creates hatred and division and instills poor mental health in our community, defining us by what we dislike instead of what brings us together. I am proud to work with colleagues here who do not subscribe to that agenda, but we can challenge that. We can challenge that through our roles on social media, having zero tolerance for division, intolerance and misinformation. And we have a powerful part to play in that. And that too can affect individual and collective mental health. I know others have had responsibilities in different guises for mental health in the past, but I believe by signing up to this pledge and by creating these roles that, I must clarify, I don't think should be appointed tonight. I think they should be referred to the ASH committee and Councillor Crosby for proper consideration, but that we should sign up to the pledge tonight, because I believe there's a lot of work to do. But by signing up to that pledge, we put a clear message across that we are committed. By signing up to the pledge, there is no cost to this local authority, but there's a chance to put our name with over 160 others, to network, to gain resources, and to gain the tools that we need to fight this crisis in mental health that we are all collectively facing. I hope you support this. There are positives we can do individually and collectively together as a council, and I urge you to support this motion. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. So you've clearly moved that. Can I ask for a seconder for the motion, please? So, Councillor Hall.
I was going to say thank you, Richard. Thank you, Chair, and congratulations. I've already told Caritas that I would second his motion. Thank you, and congratulations, Chair, on your new appointment.
Thank you. So it's been seconded. Before we move to a vote, if 7 members indicate that they would like to debate this further, if they could show, then we will have a debate. So we've got sufficient people who wish to debate this. So if you can indicate who put their hand up first.
Chairman, that was just for the to allow a debate. You've then got a number of people in hands up or chat signifying. I've got I think Mike Bell was the first, but I'll hand over to Hazel then to lead you through your list.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll start off with Councillor Mike Bell, and I'll rely on Hazel Brinton to tell me what the order is of other speakers. So, Mike.
Thanks, Chairman, and thank you, Caritas, for bringing this motion, which I completely support. I just wanted to add a bit of background in terms of where we are as a council on mental health at the moment. So members will know that we're currently developing consulting on a new health and wellbeing strategy for North Somerset, and mental health is absolutely a key part of that. Already through the engagement and consultation work that we've done on the health and wellbeing strategy, nobody should be surprised that the words that Caritas spoke were absolutely echoed in the feedback that we've had from the consultation. So mental health is really a priority for businesses, for partners and for residents across North Somerset. And it'll absolutely feature strongly in the strategy and the action plan that we'll be publishing in the summer. We have also established a mental health, all-age mental health working group that's working with partners across the health voluntary sector and other stakeholders to try and develop more detail about what we would need to do in terms of tackling the mental health challenge. And that's looking at opportunities for further investment in new services and areas where we can amplify the good things that are already happening. I've certainly made the case through a lot of the health networks in particular that we need more investment in mental health, and I've certainly been banging the drum about that for the last couple of years. And I'm pleased that particularly the clinical commissioning group, the Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire CCG, has definitely got the message, I think, from North Somerset that we do expect more investment in our services, and we want to level up to the same standard that we see in other parts of our region. And there has been some recent progress. So it's been really good to see the Safe Haven Centre open for those in mental health crisis in Weston-super-Mare. And it's been really good to see the mental health charity Off the Record come into North Somerset, again funded through the CCG. So that's really positive. And I know that Jo Walker, the Chief Executive, has been very vocal on mental health as well. And in fact, she is one of the lead executive for the Healthier Together programme across the region on mental health services. So we've absolutely got seats at the right tables and in the right conversations. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but I totally agree with all the points that Caritas made in his motion and introduction. Just as a final note, I know that the Health Overview and Scrutiny Panel has previously also looked at mental health services and has had some engagement with the Mental Health Champions Network. So I would suggest that it's something that does fit with HOSP rather than ASH. But perhaps when we come to the outside body appointments later in the agenda, if we add the mental health champion, assuming that this motion is passed to the list, and then exactly as you suggest, Caritas, it can be filled at a later date when we've had an opportunity to consider who might be interested in taking it on. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Harley. Apologies, Chairman. Councillor Harley, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, I I've listened to this, and I don't think there's anybody sitting in this well, we're not in the chamber, but I don't think there's anybody that would not agree with the sentiments that Carrot has said. I was actually going to make a proposal, but I don't think I will do that. What I will do is ask for something to be taken on board, and that is that we've heard, and I think Mike mentioned, I thought he said mental junior group. My concern is, and it's absolutely correct, it's such a very wide subject, and there are so many people that are suffering from it that we don't know. We don't know what the effect of coming out of COVID is going to bring. We don't know, certainly we have an idea that social media plays a very large part in some of the mental health issues. All of these things are vitally important that we need to address. And we've set up, not me particularly, but, a group has been set up to do with CAMS. Now that's cross-party. CAMS has always been criticised in the past, and we've always tried to get it focused. It is now becoming to get focused, and the thing is, and that I give the credit to that as well to the partners who are coming into it, but some of those have only been in situ for about 7 months, and it's not giving them time. They are under an awful lot of pressure, and I don't think we need to put more and more pressure on them. And I feel myself that CAMS is going to do a good piece of work, and what I want to try and avoid is that we're doing duplication, because we're not going to get anywhere if we do duplication.
And could I, for members of the public, could you please tell us what the acronym CAMS stands for?
CAMS, that's Children and Adults Mental Health. Children and Adults Mental Health. So it's across the board. And I think, it's a very important part, and I think Kieran is chairing it. And I mean, I did contact him, and we had a very good meeting, the last one we had. But what I think came across very clearly is that we don't want duplication. We want communication so that we are all working in this together, and then we come back to something that we can actually recommend that we go forward with it. That's my wish. So I'll cut out my proposal, and hopefully you will take that on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Councillor Gibbons, Chairman.
Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Like colleagues have said, there's absolutely nothing in what you've said, Councillor Charles, that anybody could disagree with. Mental health has, for a long time, been a sort of, I don't know, Cinderella service, if you like. It hasn't had the priority that it's now getting, and I certainly take on board the worries that Councillor Harley expresses about the children and adolescents mental health services, and we are doing a lot of work in that area, and hopefully it will be enough to improve things. But one of the things that I just wanted to highlight is that in the pandemic, and we're talking now about returning to normality, but during these past 12 months, what I've noticed through voluntary work and other involvement in the community is that the one thing we've had is a sense that it's been okay not to be okay, because we've all been in a very remarkable situation, and people have been a lot more open at talking about the strains and stresses they felt during lockdown and during the pandemic. And that is, if you like, a strange positive, that people who wouldn't normally ask help, who wouldn't normally express concerns about their mental health and their loneliness, have been able to do so, because it's been something we've all been experiencing. And I just hope that work that we're doing and these pledge that Councillor Charles asks us to sign up to will make sure that we don't lose that sense that it is okay to struggle. It's not okay to feel that way, but it's okay to express it. It's okay to have those feelings. It's an element of health that is as relevant to talk about as any other illness. And I hope that we don't lose that sense that it's out there and we can talk about it openly. So I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbons.
Councillor Crosby, Chairman.
Councillor Crosby, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I only wanted to raise at this point that Councillor Bell and I some time ago had a chat about the scope and scale of the appointment of a mental health care champion. And at the time, I simply said that Ash were keen to be involved in helping to prepare and identify what that scope and scale should be. And no doubt, clearly, that other committees, panels would also want to be involved. It's challenging, I think, look into how we create the best mandate and attract the best person to do it. That was all it was. Thank you.
Good point. Yeah.
Councillor Bell would like to make a point of information, Chairman, before the next speaker.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that CAMS is Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. So it does only cover children and adolescents and not adults. So I totally take Councillor Harley's points about CAMS and how important that is and how important it is to have joined up work. But that's just one strand of the mental health services. So and I think Caritas's motion is much broader than that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Councillor Davies, Chairman.
Councillor Davis.
Just to reiterate everybody else's comments and support of this motion, taking this forward, which is a vital issue, I think, which has very affected all us as elected members, if not wider members of the community over the last 12 months. And I just think this is such a serious issue that we need to be seen to be taking it seriously because it's affecting so many of us. So thank you for bringing the motion.
Absolutely. Right. Anybody else?
Finally, Councillor Willis, Chairman.
Ros.
Oh, lovely. Thank you and congratulations, Chairman. I know you'll enjoy and you'll do well. So at a previous council meeting, I spoke in depth about our asset programme, asking that home working isn't a norm and that we have a mix, and how important it is for that social interaction and for those people that suffer anxiety. And I know Councillor Charles and I had an email conversation after that, and I was very grateful for that and only too happy to be able to support. So I think it's really important, as Councillor Bell has said. We did have, in my time of the Health Overview Scrutiny Panel, we had champions put in place and we had a mental health champion on there, and it did work well. The mental health services has been always seen as the poor relation, and we've always had to fight, as we still are fighting now, to get services for those who need it, and at the right time. When you're in a crisis, it's not 9 to 5. A crisis is a crisis. And finally, Chairman, having spent this lockdown shielding most of the time at home with my husband, a cancer patient, I have been inundated from my own charity for domestic abuse victims, male victims. You know, we have been beyond capacity, as a lot of other charities have, and the mental health issues of going through that when you are put into a property which is 20 miles away from your young children and can't see them, can't travel, etc., only exacerbates a situation that is bad to begin with. And having gone through lockdown with those people, it has made it even clearer to me the fight has to continue. And I think this can only strengthen now. This will only strengthen exactly what we can do to make it better. So I'm pleased it was brought forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Willis. Is there anybody else, Hazel?
No further speakers, Chairman.
No. I think from the tone of everybody's contribution, the debate that an en bloc vote would be appropriate next. So I'll hand over to you to conduct that.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, totally. I think the debate has been very supportive. And anybody against the motion? Any abstentions? In which case, carried, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. Right, we'll move on then to the second motion, which is the test and trace system. And this is from the Vice Chair, Councillor Havison. So over to you, Karen.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Charles, for your motion. You won't be surprised that my motion also springs out of the aftermath of the pandemic, and it deals with the current functioning of our test and trace system. Recent cross-party government advisory committee has stated that during the current pandemic, the test and trace system has only made a marginal impact in the UK. This system is run by private companies at huge expense to the taxpayer. It's now apparent that local authorities are much more successful in tracing contacts. They also have the local knowledge for backwards tracing, which means tracing the source of an outbreak. North Somerset, like many other local councils, have run a supplementary service since January, contacting local residents who could not be contacted by the existing service. Some other local authorities, such as Sandwell in the West Midlands and others, have taken all of contact tracing on. As early as last summer, Lambeth Borough Council have recently done so, and I understand that Nottingham and Leicester are also in the process of doing so. A functioning test and trace system is still absolutely vital to stopping this virus spreading over the coming months and year. As independent SAGE members led by Sir David King, the WHO and public health experts like Professor Devi Shridhar have asserted time and time again. Scientists, unfortunately, also expect future pandemics. I therefore move that North Somerset Council expresses concern about the poor performance of the existing test and trace system and ask our Chief Executive and our leader to write to the Secretary of State for Health, Matt Hancock, and to Robert Jenrick, Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, as well as our local MPs, to ask for a meaningful dialogue with local authorities on co-designing our future health protection rather than receiving a national policy decision. This should include considering the contact tracing system to be devolved to local government with rapid data transfer from the testing service and appropriate funding support. I understand that we're already in a pilot system at the moment, which is very similar to that. This may be both more cost effective and more successful in encouraging compliance, as local authorities know their communities and are trusted. However, this will have to be clearly dependent on adequate funding, both for staff and data systems. I also move to explore the possibility of expanding our current follow-up system by involving volunteers, such as retired GPs and nurses, analogous to our successful North Somerset Together scheme. At the beginning of this pandemic, I was approached by two of those who were very, very keen to offer their services, but unfortunately could not be used. This could be brought forward in time for the next wave, expected by many scientists, unfortunately, for the autumn. I would also like Dr. Heim, who in the public participation section expressed support for this motion, but added an extra. And just for those of you who may not remember what Dr. Heim said, he basically stressed how important another element of the test and trace system is, and that is adequate support for self-isolation, which unfortunately has not happened. Other countries have shown us how successful that be, including Australia and New Zealand and some South Asian countries. I totally agree with Dr. Heim and support for self-isolation is an absolutely essential element in our fight against the pandemic. And I would therefore like to also move that North Somerset add this to our letter of concern to the Secretary of Health and Robert Jenrick. And I would like to really ask for more extra financial support for those of our vulnerable citizens who simply cannot afford to self-isolate. Thank you very much.
Could I just break in there as to the second point that Dr. Hine makes, which is that the Council must accept that the aim of public health policy should be eradication rather than control of the virus. The probability of new virus variants makes any idea of living with the virus an extremely dangerous long-term option. Council policy should be to put an effective track and trace system in place in order to further the aim of eradication. Are you happy to take that on board as well?
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes.
Right. I will therefore look for a second.
Excuse me, Chairman, a point of information is Councillor Willis. I've just had notification that my hand function isn't working, so I couldn't notify you. It says there's an error. I would just like it noted that I won't speak or vote on this, as I have a number of friends who are working for the system. So I would like that noted, please, and that I haven't got a hand anymore.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Willis. I will now therefore ask for a seconder.
Chairman, Councillor Gibbons had indicated in chat already that she would like to second. If I could just ask members if you could use the chat function to indicate when you want to speak and leave the hands up for when we're looking at the votes.
Absolutely. Right, so over to you, Councillor Gibbons.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm happy to second this. I was actually going to move the points from Dr. Heim, but you've already taken them on board, Councillor Havison, so I don't need to go through those. I think it's yes, I think the whole issue of test and trace and the way it's been handled is something that we certainly need to make representation to the government and to our MPs about, because it is going to be crucial in the future. I won't talk at any great length on this because I think that it's very clear what we are trying to achieve with your motion, and I will just stop there and say happy I am to second it.
Right. If I could ask the solicitor if we've had 7 people wishing to debate this issue.
No, yeah, you've just had the seconded, Chairman, so if you could ask for anybody to indicate, if you could just put hands up, if there are enough I can see on the pictures.
Hands up, people, if you would like to debate this issue.
Yes, I've got plenty of hands, Chairman, thank you. Good.
On we go then to debate. So, Hazel, can you tell me who's first?
I can. It's Councillor Bell, Chairman.
Councillor Bell, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Karen, for tabling this motion. I think it's interesting that in the course of moving the motion, you sort of underlined the first point that I was going to make, which is that I think this is a really complex subject. And I'm not sure that it is best discussed at a full council, because by adding things like eradication as a policy objective, well, that's, you know, way out with the influence and control of North Somerset Council. And I do wonder whether we really should be debating these kinds of points at full council at all. However, in principle, I don't have an issue with the points that you're making in the motion, and I'm happy to see the council continuing some of the lobbying that we've already done on testing and tracing. I mean, I think it's worth noting that our public health team, and I can say this because he's looking at me out of my screen now, our public health team led by Matt Lenny and supported by everybody in public health and right across the council has done a superb job in managing our response. And I think particularly on the testing and tracing, it's been especially difficult because, let's face it, we haven't had a clear roadmap in terms of how this was going to pan out through the pandemic. And dare I say, I don't think this is controversial. The government's direction of travel has maybe changed from time to time in terms of its approach to testing and tracing. So I really applaud our public health teams and our colleagues in the NHS who've done such a good job. However, I think it is fair to say that the national centralised test and trace has got flaws, hasn't it? You know, it has been mind-numbingly expensive. It was initially, at least, very ineffective and in critical ways in terms of things like local knowledge, in terms of data sharing and the support available for those self-isolating, including the payments. It's been far too slow to get moving. And throughout the pandemic, I know that Matt, through public health channels, certainly the leader, Don Davis, and I, through political channels, have raised these issues time and again. And unfortunately, you know, in common with quite a lot of voices across the course of this pandemic, ministers haven't necessarily always been listening. So I think it's clearly had its flaws. That and I certainly wish that the government made different decisions a year ago in terms of their approach. However, I think we should also recognise that this has been a difficult challenge for everybody, including the government, and we are not where we were a year ago. So I think, you know, North Somerset has stepped up and developed a really good enhanced contact tracing system locally that I think we can build upon in line with the spirit of your motion, Karen. I think the hard work of local people and the COVID restrictions and the vaccine programme have clearly reduced cases down to a much lower level. And I think that gives us cause for optimism. So I hope that we can continue that progress. But there's clearly a long way to go. Just a flag, I did circulate this afternoon a note about the local contact tracing service, which I hope was helpful in terms of framing this debate. And I have also asked for a briefing for members so that you can get an update on where we are with contact tracing and testing locally. And Councillor Cronolly, as chairman of HOSP, has agreed to enable that and host it for us. So I hope that will be helpful too. But otherwise, I'm happy with, in principle, with this motion. Let's continue our lobbying of government and hope that they listen.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Who's next, Hazel?
Councillor Crosby, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chair. Some months ago now, I had the pleasure of sitting and listening to Councillor Havison as she spoke to a small group of us about how viruses work. And it was an extraordinary insight. And I remember at one point sitting there with my knees shaking at what she was describing. But there is no doubt, based on what has happened throughout the world so far, that local testing is the best way forward. It's proven in New Zealand, in Australia, in Southeast Asia, and so on and so forth. And all I can say at this point, taking into account Councillor Bell's cautionary note, that we do have to bat bigger in this as local authorities and end this, what was certainly a dysfunctional and ridiculously expensive system. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Crosby.
Councillor Ashton, Chairman.
Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Chairman. God help me, but I agreed with virtually everything Mike Bell said. So it's taken a few years, I suppose. But thank you for that, Mike. And also, I thought it was helpful the circulation of the briefing that we got earlier did allay some of my fears. As Mike said, I have no problem with the principle of this, and it is being discussed still between the LGA and the government. So I wasn't sure what this motion actually achieved. Obviously, I thought the sort of criticism of those who've been dealing with it, as Mike said a year ago, I mean, it's all very well being clever with hindsight, but it doesn't really help anybody. And they were doing their best, I'm sure. I would just have a word of caution, though, is that when things get devolved by government, we don't seem to get quite as much money as they've been spending on it, or quite the resources. And we could end up, especially in somewhere like North Somerset, where a lot of councils are all desperately trying to recruit the correct staff and get the right sort of resources and money from central government. and we actually can't do as well as we would like or we think we need. So there is a just be caution about how we push for that and how fast we try to move. And really, I would be more happy if the criticism was taken out and actually the LGA was copied into this, because I think it is probably cross-party in the LGA talking to government, and I think that would be a better way to criticise people in the same letter you're asking for some more money. It never seems to be a good business plan, really.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton.
Councillor Harley, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with both what Councillor Bell and Councillor Ashton have said, and I think it's important that we listen to those comments. And I feel this, actually. We all know it's been very, very difficult. We also know that because we've never, and hopefully never again, will experience anything like it. All I'm going to say on this, I'm pleased in the way that we're not on the continent, because they haven't even got anything going hardly with their injections. But I think that the government said from the very outset that, look, we're going to have an inquiry once we've got through this, and everything has to be looked at, how everything panned out, the hospitals, the care homes, everything. I personally feel it's very difficult to cherry pick and pick one item, as valid as it is. And can I just make a point that I know something came up about private investment in this. I'd have to say, without some private investment, it may be very difficult to get a lot of these things through. We rely on that because it's a partnership. But I do agree with what Councillor Bell and Councillor Ashton have said, and I would prefer to actually put in, if Councillor Havison accepts it, the LGA, because I think that would be the right way to go. Thank you.
Is that an amendment that you're thinking about there, Councillor Harley?
Switched off again. I think if we can make that amendment, and I mean, it was Councillor Ashton who proposed it, and I think that if he would, and Councillor Havison would take that on board, because I think that's a better. Oh, that sounds good. I think that would be a better way to move forward. And in actual fact, I would actually support that. But as it stands, I'm sorry to say I couldn't support it.
Chairman,
I'm trying to be, sorry.
Chairman, if my name is mentioned, I'm not sure it needs an amendment. I'm just saying that actually you really just copy in the LGA and go through them, as well as writing directly to a minister.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I was possibly going to be, or try and be constructive from the chair, and possibly suggest that we refer this, because people have said that this possibly is a complex subject that isn't appropriate for debate, or that appropriate for debate at full council. That if we were to refer this to an appropriate committee, I believe HOSP, in my view, would be the appropriate committee to look at this matter.
Yes, Chairman.
Yeah.
Chairman, sorry, it's Councillor Bell. If I could just a point of clarification, I just wonder, given the way the motion is worded, it's not actually instructive, is it, in the motion? So I'm happy that why don't we continue the debate and take the motion as is, but with the addition that group leaders agree the final wording of the letter to go to ministers and the LGA, because it will be a quicker way of moving it forward. And I don't think we fundamentally disagree with most of it. It's about drafting rather than anything more sinister than that, it feels to me.
Yep, that sounds a very positive way forward, Councillor Bell. Who's next, Hazel?
Councillor Holt, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to offer my thanks to Councillor Havison for such a considered piece of work there. I mean, we have to listen to each other, talking about a range of subjects that many of us are not expert on, and I include myself in that, often forced to talk about things that, frankly, I really don't understand. And for once, it's great to hear something so informed coming from an immunologist at the end of the day. So Karen really does know her stuff.
and if we listen to any of the words that have been spoken tonight, it's Karen's words that we should be listening to. And so I embrace the principles of everything that she said, the mechanics of how we take it forward. I accept we've probably got some work to do, but I fully support everything that she said. Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, Councillor Cherry, Chairman. Oh, and Councillor Hogg has also requested to speak again.
Right, so Councillor Cherry.
Oh, thank you very much. Actually, I was not going to speak again because I just heard what Councillor Hogg said, but effectively I totally agreed with Karen's wording. And I think she was very careful about what she'd said. And in fact, we might not need to be quite so apologetic because after all, we are talking about 30 billion, which have been spent on track and trace. Whereas what Karen was talking about was the resources for local authorities to do a job, which, you know, maybe it won't be 30 billion. And I know that people are embarrassed by that sum, extremely embarrassed, which is why politically we are trying to come to some compromise wording. But nonetheless, it is an embarrassment, actually. Frankly, it is an embarrassment. And I agree with Karen Havison. Thank you, Karen.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cherry. Steve, do you want to speak again?
No, it was the same. It was the same. I was trying to put my hand down, but
legacy hand. Oh, legacy. Well, there you go.
Thanks.
Right. Okay. So we seem to have a sort of consensus that we are keen on what Councillor Havison has said, together with the additions from Dr. Hine. I'd like to hand back to Councillor Bell to clarify what he was suggesting, because I think that would be a very elegant way forward.
Yes, Chairman, very happy to do that. I mean, my suggestion is that the motion as amended in Karen's introduction stands, but we just agree that the wording of the letter will be agreed with Karen and the chief executive and leader, but by the group leaders, just so as we can, you know, finesse it and make sure that everyone is comfortable with the precise way that we word the letter.
Right. Karen, are you happy to take that on board?
Yes, that sounds absolutely perfect. Thank you very much, Mike. Yes, I think that's the appropriate way forward.
And Catherine, as seconder, you're okay with that? Yep.
Yes,
nod
Chairman,
from
yes.
Catherine. Good. In which case, I think we can go to a vote. So over to you, Nick.
If any are against, if you could indicate in the hand function or in Councillor Willis's case by yelling at me. I'm seeing none.
Yeah, so abstain. Yes, abstain. Councillor Worth, thank you.
Thank you. And that's therefore carried, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. So we go on to the next item, which is tackling disability, stigma and discrimination. Councillor Codling, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I offer you my congratulations too? I'm sure you'll tire of them soon. And thank you for the chance to speak this evening. I'm disappointed I'm the third after a couple of really important previous motions, but I'm grateful for your time. And I sincerely hope the members will feel able to agree to this motion to tackle disability, stigma and discrimination, and in so doing indicate demonstrable support for the dignity of all our residents and visitors, as well as adopting a clear commitment to prevent and challenge instances of abuse and discrimination faced by disabled people. In our considerations, it's important to recognise this is not a marginal issue. 1 in 5 people in the UK have a disability, and 80% of those disabilities are hidden. The measures in this motion, including signage and the Hidden Disability Sunflower Scheme, to increase accessibility for people with a hidden disability, they're practical measures, but they also offer a powerful message. Government's commitment to and £30 million of new funding for improving facilities for disabled people who need changing places toilets has been described by disability campaigners as a big step towards tackling the exclusion that many disabled people experience when they're out and about. And Councillor Gibbons and Councillor Charles referred to in the mental health motion about how people are starting to say it's okay to not be okay in the effects of lockdown. Well, many physically disabled people have said to me, and I'm sure to many of you, welcome to life in lockdown, because that's how their lives can feel in that perpetual state of lockdown. And some of this is in our gift. So with this new funding, we need to be part of it, not just opting in to bid for it, but also sending the message that North Somerset is a place for all people. So in conclusion, by backing this motion and the resolutions, we will, as a council, support both local people and visitors who have a variety of disabilities. We'll assist local businesses to benefit from an increase in visitors. And by enhancing our accessibility credentials, we'll demonstrate that North Somerset Council is an inclusive council and that this is a place for all people. Thank you for listening, and I believe Councillor Willis would like to second the motion.
Councillor Willis, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to second this motion and just speak to it if I may briefly. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So we all have a duty of care as civic leaders to not only make policy, but also to enable others to adhere to it. Mentioned already are some of the hidden disabilities, but there are many others. Heart disease isn't seen, multiple sclerosis, motor neurone disease and Parkinson's when are in early stages. Arthritis and fibromyalgia are very unseen, as is fibromyalgia, you cannot see it. There's also, problems for people who have bowel disease and bladder disease, and the social isolation for them, not being able to go out because of some of the issues that they encounter, is, as Councillor Cozzens already said, is lockdown. So there's just a few mentioned there, and I'm sure you all know there are very many others. So I'm sure all colleagues will support this and help to make lives better for those who have no choice but to stay home sometimes. Thank you.
Right. Do we have 7 people indicating that they would like to debate this? Lots, a plethora. Good. We will therefore move to the debate. So Hazel, who's first?
Councillor Bell, Chairman.
Councillor Bell, over to you.
Sorry, everyone, I'll get it out of my system eventually. It was just making me think then when you said a plethora, I wonder what the correct collective term for a group of councillors is, but we better not digress on that one too long. I completely support this motion and totally endorse the remarks from Councillor Codling and Councillor Willis. And I think as Councillor knows, as Sarah knows, I've already asked officers to sign North Somerset up to the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Scheme, because I think that is a really important piece to help us work with the business community, particularly to do more to make our community more accessible to people with disabilities. And I wanted to also remind members that we do have a very strong and active disabilities access group, which is independently chaired by Vision North Somerset, and is made up of representatives with a wide variety of disabilities. And if anyone knows of any other individuals or organisations that would like to be part of that, please do let me know, because it really does have a very strong voice in the council, both in terms of shaping some of our policies and commenting on our consultations, but also being really active in agitating for improvements. All power to them. The other thing I just wanted to mention was that I think we should also be mindful that COVID has had a disproportionate impact on people with disabilities, with many of the changes that the rest of us have seen as an inconvenience being really life-changing for those living with a disability. You know, you just imagine trying to keep 2 meters away from somebody if you're blind, or trying to wear a face covering when you've got a lung condition, or trying to go up and down the pavement in Western Town Centre to avoid social distancing measures when you're a wheelchair user. So it's so important that all of us try to understand the experiences of people with disabilities, learn from them, advocate with them for changes and improvements, and tackle discrimination in all its forms. So thank you, Sarah, for bringing the motion, and I hope members will support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Instead of plethora, I should have said enough already. But it looks as though unanimity is breaking out again on this one. So who's next, Hazel?
Councillor Bridger.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Rich. I'll be brief. Thank you, Councillor Codling, for bringing this motion to Council. As always, you're a credit to the Council. I'd like to endorse all the actions in Sarah's motion that she asked the Council to take. I know that the hidden disabilities lanyard, the sunflower lanyard, acts as a discreet sign to council staff, supermarket staff, that additional support or help might be required from someone with a hidden disability. Mike mentioned COVID, as I think Sarah did when speaking to her motion. As Mike said, one thing we have learned is that the virus does discriminate when it comes to the impact on people with disability, whether that's physical, mental, so that's relevant to Councillor Charles's motion as well, and hidden disability. So whilst I think COVID, as I understand it, isn't itself considered a disability under the equalities legislation, I think long COVID is an absolutely enormous issue which still isn't getting the coverage that it warrants, I don't think. I think that potentially long COVID is likely to be classed as a disability under the Equality Act in due course. And of course, many of the symptoms associated with long COVID may be hidden. So this is incredibly important, and I fully support Councillor Codling's motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Who's next, Hazel?
Councillor Holland, Chairman.
Nicola, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. No, I fully support, again, to repeat what everybody else has just said, I fully support Councillor Codling's motion. In my youth, I was actually, many years ago, I was a live-in carer for the elderly and disabled. The disabled on the whole were young people. And they were just as active as they would have been without their disabilities, and quite possibly when you look at some young people today and their on-screen life, possibly even more so. But the problem was each trip out had to be so carefully planned, because this aspect was absolutely at the top of the list of concerns. And I can quite honestly say I see very little change between then and now.
Lost you,
more people.
Nicola.
Sorry?
We lost you for a moment.
Oh, sorry. Do apologise.
We lost you for a moment.
Am I here now?
Yeah, just about.
Good. So each trip out with the disabled people I was looking after had to be so very carefully planned. This aspect was absolutely at the top of the list of concerns. I see very little change between then and now, apart from the fact more people are talking about it, and so more people know that it is actually a problem. So I'm so pleased to read of the increase in funding and the plans to actually increase facilities that are available, because this is going to actually increase the amount of time that these disabled people are going to be actually able to spend in the community where they belong, with their community where they should be. So thank you very much, Councillor Codling, for putting this motion forward.
Right, thank you. Anybody else?
Councillor McQuillan.
Councillor McQuillan.
Thank you, and congratulations, Councillor Westwood, once again, and obviously to Councillor Havison as well. Thank you, Councillor Codling. This is an excellent motion, fully in support. An individual worked for me a few years ago and won the job young man suffering from Crohn's disease. It is a difficult thing to manage, and it's not something that is obvious, and is a very, very good example of a hidden disability. And I think this is an excellent motion. The only slight suggestion I may make, and apologies if it's something I've missed, is as well as encouraging businesses to potentially change their signage, I wonder whether we could also encourage town and parish councils where they own village halls and things to look at that as well. But excellent motion, fully in support, and thank you for bringing it.
Councillor Gibbons, Chairman.
Over to you, Councillor Gibbons.
Thank you. Yes, as Councillor Codling knows, I'm fully in support of this because she brought us a very similar motion to Western Town Council, and I was really pleased to speak in favour of that. One of the things, and I'm not going to echo everything everybody else has said because I think we're in danger of being here for a very long time otherwise. One of the things that I think about is perhaps we also, on top of everything else, need as councillors to find a way to educate the wider public about hidden disabilities. I have been with a relative who has a hidden disability, and when she has used a disabled facility in a theatre, she has got comments and abuse, I would say, and a lot of negativity from other people, because the common view is of a disability that it is, physical, wheelchair use or whatever. It isn't extreme anxiety, it isn't a heart condition, it isn't something that you look normal. So along with this, I suppose we find a way as councillors and as a council to get that message out there that disability isn't what you think it necessarily is. It could be you, it could be me. And that embarrassment and discomfort that people feel when it's a hidden disability and they know that people are looking at them. If, for example, they're not wearing a mask in a shop because they can't for whatever reason, or if they're using the disabled loo in a store and they are walking, people look. This is the kind of challenge that we have as a community to get educating people to understand. And I absolutely support everything that is in this motion. Just would like to add perhaps some facility for education on the matter. Thank you.
Noted. Right. Who's next, Hazel?
Councillor Charles, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. I consider Councillor Codling a good friend, but we rarely agree politically. And this is one of the rare occasions when we actually agree. And I fully support. Don't you pull tongues at me, Sarah? But I fully agree with this, and I would also add as well that I don't know what mechanisms we have with regards to auditing our accessibility as a council with regards to areas of hidden disability and where we can improve, and whether by adopting this and the previous motion that I proposed with regards to a mental health champion and mental health commitments, whether we can actually look at an audit of what we do and what measures we can put in place, including the proposals that Sarah's already added. I particularly am very keen, because it's my bag, about communication and how we communicate, particularly with people with learning disabilities who face an awful lot of stigma and will go to great lengths to hide their disability because of the stigma they face, and how we can improve our communications to service that community as well. But it's a great motion, even with Sarah pulling tongues at me. Thank you.
Good. Through the chair, you can poke tongues at me. Right, okay, so anybody else?
Yes, we have two more, Chairman. Councillor Codling, followed by Councillor Cherry.
Well, if Councillor Codling is summing up, which she can do, then we'll go with Councillor Cherry first.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciated this this motion, and I have recently had the pleasure of talking to various disability charities because I was investigating about access for the disabled when we active travel schemes. And I do appreciate exactly what Caritas Charles said, which is that there are definitely impediments to many disabled people using various passageways even within my ward. And the active travel scheme was one particular thing which has caused problems. But nonetheless, I do support this. But overall, what I would say is that it shows clearly that there is a need for stronger legislation to protect disabled people. Because at the moment, we've got very little to protect the disabled. And if we all support this, we should also make sure that our MPs know that we believe that there should be greater protection for invisible disabilities in law. Thank you.
Difficult to achieve, I suspect. Right, Councillor Codling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just try to be brief. On Councillor Gibbons' point about education, totally agree. And there is short reference within the motion to training and information, I think I've suggested from charities for council staff and for others. And Councillor McQuillan, absolutely, yes, not just businesses, town and parish councils. Councillor Gibbons said we endorsed it through Western Town Council, and I would very much encourage members here to go out to their parish councils if relevant and do that, and I'd be really happy to support if I can. Councillor Charles, you're quite right about auditing what we've got. I think the sunflower friendly council scheme would go quite a long way toward that, and picking up Councillor Cherry's point as well about seeing what impediments are actually out there. And I would say that that is, of course, very much the point of the quality impact assessments, which were part of legislation. Back in a previous long ago professional life, I worked in disability and access for a local authority. When the government brought in the Disability Discrimination Act in 1995, that went quite some way. The Equality Act, we've had to update it, and we have the obligation to do a quality impact assessments, but we can always do them better, I think. We need to be more than just tick boxing, and the common thread of all the kind and helpful comments of members is that this really does speak to our community leadership position. So I'd be really grateful if it's supported. Thank you.
Right. Well, as I say, unanimity is broken out once more. Is there anybody else waiting to speak? No.
No further speakers, Chairman, no.
In which case, and judging from the tone of the debate, we can go for an en bloc vote again. I'll hand over to the solicitor.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, members, if you could show either in the chat, in the hands up, or speak out if anybody against. Any abstentions? That's carried then, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we move on to matters number 9. Agenda item 9, matters referred from previous meeting. There are none. Item 10, you'll be glad to know that I've given all of my announcements earlier on, but there are none. On then to item 11, leaders' announcements.
Thank you. I will follow you, Chair, and having none.
And on we go to number 12, Chief Executive's announcements. Are there any?
No, there's none. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, a hat trick. Well done. Good. So item 13, and I'm sure there'll be something that's got to be said here. Political balance and leaders and deputy leaders of the political groups for the municipal year 2021 to 2022. Over to you, Nick.
There is something to say, Chairman, but it will be very short. So political balance remains at Independents 16, Conservatives 13, Liberal Democrats 11, Labour 6, Green 3. Obviously, we have a by-election in Portishead East as part of the elections on the 6th of May, and I will update the membership after that. As far as leaders and deputy leaders of the political groups go, again, I've not been advised of any changes, so they for the time being, remain the same as last year.
Thank you. On we go to item 14, the Council's Constitution. Again, over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. So, members, you've got the report at the annual meeting. I bring forward any required constitutional changes, and this year, basically in 4 parts. There are some changes that we need to do to recognise the fact that you now, as the council, own a delivery company, North Somerset Environment Company. You also have 2 dormant companies which we have set up. And so there are a number of changes to the executive arrangements and the scrutiny arrangements, which are set out in the report, so that we properly oversee the operations of the company and keep those separate from the operations of the service function. The second bunch of suggestions or recommendations is just to align the officer establishment arrangements to those that you've recently adopted for the appointments committee. The third is that in the Place Directorate, we are currently looking at some enforcement activity for littering and the like being done by an outside firm. At the moment, the Constitution only allows you to authorise officers, or only allows your directors to authorise officers of the council. So this is a change that would also allow you to authorise external staff of such enforcement companies. And the final one, obviously, you're aware that you've had a planning peer review recently, and there's some recommendations coming from that. Some of them will be implemented by the director directly, but the ones that would need council approval are for the change in number to 13 permanently for the committee at this time, and also to change the public participation rules. So those are the recommendations from me. On the last one, I would just say that some members have helpfully fed back recently of substitution and not being fully clear on the substitution arrangements for the likes of P&R, and I can confirm that you can attend at the likes of P&R and indeed any other committee, and at the discretion of the chairman address any item. I think with the planning committee, if you are reducing, I have heard from a number of parties that local members do want the ability to be able to go, and it shouldn't just be at the discretion of the chairman. So I think we could write into the protocol for the committee that a local member should always be given the right to address the committee if they so wish on a matter in their ward. Chairman, over to you.
Thank you. I can see that a number of members have raised their hands. We will be having a debate on this, so don't worry. We will, first of all, though, I'll go to Councillor Davis to move the recommendations.
Well, I'd like to thank Nick for the reports. Thank you for that. And I look for a seconder to my proposal, and I would just, for a point of information, state that Councillor John Crockford-Hawley has set up a working group to consider the planning review, and I think it's important that members let that group consider the planning peer review and then any subsequent changes to constitution that would then follow, which we clearly debate prior to any implementation. Thank you. Can I find a seconder?
Do we have a seconder?
I'm happy to second, Chairman. Councillor Bell.
That's Councillor Bell. Thank you. Right. We can therefore move on to debate this matter. So, Hazel, do we have a list of speakers, please?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Ashton was first.
Right.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I think my first point may have been answered because I was one of the members who spoke to Nick about local members having the right to attend and take part rather than just at the chairman's discretion. I think that is important, and if that's been accepted, then fine. And also what Councillor Davis said just now, I'm not quite sure whether we're taking the decision tonight, which actually the wording says we are, or whether it is going to go on to a working group, because I do have a concern on paragraph 3.9, which is about the planning issue, because we reluctantly gave up area committees a few years ago, and that was just under pressure of officer resources. But at least the larger single committee meant that there was still quite a lot of local input. All councillors, whether they like it or not, get involved with planning. It's probably the first thing that they come across when they become a new councillor and haven't a clue, and they say the wrong things to a desperate member of the public, whatever it might be. So all councillors really do need to get the training, and they also, when representing their ward, they need to not lose their involvement with what's going on, because you get out of date very quickly. And I'm concerned at the statement that said the 13 will be providing a tighter and more focused committee delivering place shaping aspirations, but that seems to ignore the huge variety of different aspirations that our varied communities across North Somerset have. and to leave it in the hand of virtually the same 13 with the occasional local plan having a local member on it, I think is a real dilution of the democracy of the whole issue of planning, which is very, very subjective. If you are going to be purely objective and within the letter of the law, they're called officers. And, you know, since when did councillors have to be experts on anything, let alone planning? We have qualified officers for that. We're just supposed to be the ordinary, slightly better informed, hopefully, members of the public questioning why, and not just following officers.
Yep.
So I am concerned at this being reduced to 13 and therefore taking out of the debate in public people's involvement with planning.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. You raised some very good points there. I'll hand over to the solicitor as far as whether a decision is being taken tonight and what the status of the advisory group that John Crockford-Hawley has set up. So, Nick.
So, Chairman, the recommendation in the paper, which has been moved and seconded, is clearly to take that decision tonight. But I think the position outlined by the leader is that the working group would then look at this and all the other recommendations in the peer review, and if necessary, bring them back to you again for further consideration. It would be remiss of me if I didn't put them to you in the annual meeting, which is the normal point where you consider the Constitution, but obviously they can come back to you again at any point in the year if the working group want to update them or make further recommendations for change.
Chairman, can I follow up what I was saying then, please, Chairman, just to finish the point?
Certainly, Councillor Ashton.
If that's going to be the case that we are taking a decision today, well, firstly, I would have to vote against it. And secondly, can all councillors contribute to the working party?
Good question. Yes. What I'd say there is that we've got, as far as numbers of people on the P&R committee, we've got 13 at the moment. So it would be maintaining the status quo, wouldn't it? And that would be, I think, acceptable.
No, Chairman,
it
says it's confirming it will be permanently 13.
Yes,
if we're going to do that, then that's the debate we're going to have in the working group, and I think all members ought to be able to contribute to that.
I thought that the solicitor had indicated that it wouldn't necessarily be permanent, that it could be brought back.
Oh, well, it could be brought back, but this decision today is making it permanent unless it's brought back to change it again.
That would be the case. And in terms of the all members taking part in the working party, obviously that would be up to the working party chair to run. But yes, certainly I could see that could be an all-member working party, either by written submissions or by oral submissions. We can work out a way of doing that.
I wouldn't want to take part. I just want to be able to submit my views on it to the working party.
I'm quite happy to work with the chairman of the working party to make appropriate arrangements.
Does that satisfy your concerns, Councillor Ashton?
Yes, on that clarity that it could come back after having gone to the working party. Yes, it just seems crazy we take the decision and then say we're going to amend it, or could amend it. But so be it. That's fine.
Okay. So, who else do we have to speak?
Councillor Crew is next, Chairman.
Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment.
Thanks, Peter.
I think it's been covered now. My preference would have been to say that 3.9 be deferred for one cycle. If Nick doesn't think that can happen, my understanding was with John, we've got a working group that's going to look at this peer review in detail, produce a report from that, then ask members' views to go to a full scrutiny panel for further discussion and amendment before it goes back through to council.
Any comments? Nick? No.
Yes. So from my point of view, Chairman, I think Councillor Crockford-Hawley, as the chair of the working party would like to speak. From my point of view, I am putting forward the recommendation today because I'm duty bound to bring it forward to you at the earliest possibility. The peer review has reported, so I'm making a suggestion for an arrangement, but that could obviously be changed again in the future depending on the working party.
Fair enough. So I'll bring forward Councillor Crockford-Hawley to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we're in danger of making heavy weather of this. It would be sensible, would it not, given that it is potentially controversial, for the matter to be aired in a setting where people can discuss rather than in the formal full council meeting. So I would happily take it back to the working party and then certainly agree with Councillor Ashton's point that everybody should be able to feed their thoughts to the working party, and then we bring it back to council with our considered recommendations. Of course, that wouldn't dictate to council. Council would then still have the complete ability to accept, reject, or alter those recommendations. But thus far, we haven't been able to really discuss it. So it would be sensible to send it to the working party first and then come back on condition that you all have the ability to put in your thought should you wish to. My one caveat is that the last thing we want is a working party the size of the council, because that would neither be a party nor would it work. Well, it would be a party, but it wouldn't work.
Are we struggling towards an amendment here?
If there is a recommendation, I would happily make an amendment that this issue be sent to the working party for further discussion and then return to council for a final decision.
So the
does Mr. Brain find that
issue,
acceptable?
It's not my recommendation now. It's been moved by the leader and seconded by the deputy leader, so it would be an amendment to their resolution now.
In terms of due process, that would be
in terms of due process, that would work. I mean, my only concern is that at the moment we are at the end of the virtual meeting regulations. If the court case tomorrow doesn't extend those, we will be back to a committee of 27 meeting, still in COVID conditions and not being able to do so socially distanced without a lot of other. By moving this now, you would give us the opportunity to have a committee of 13 pending your working party doing its work and potentially bringing back further suggestions in the future.
We don't intend hanging around.
So just for clarity, Councillor Crockford-Hawley, you're moving that as an amendment. Do we have a seconder for it?
Yes.
We've got a seconder. Who was seconding?
Councillor Ashton.
Councillor Ashton seconded it. Fine.
Would it be easier if, Chairman, if the leader were to take that on board, would that get rid of the need for a different vote, and then we could just go ahead with the leader's request?
I can answer that now. I'm absolutely supportive of that, John. The whole point of the statement I made earlier was that we must listen to all of the councillors, as Councillor Ashton has said. They feed into the working group, and you come back to us with some solid, argued recommendations to take forward, but understanding the point the solicitor is making about the urgency for the current status quo in terms of the issues around COVID. So I'm absolutely saying that we should accept your amendment, and we ask you to speed forth in your consideration.
Yeah. Okay.
So that has now been subsumed into the proposal. Councillor Bell, do you agree with that?
Well, not especially, but in the interest of getting on with it.
Fine. That sounds about right. Okay, is anybody else wishing to speak?
Yes, Chairman, you have Councillor Porter next.
Councillor Porter.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I hope you best of luck for your year as Chairman. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. It was a very enjoyable year. Just Cheers, on Derek. This, I couldn't vote in favour of this because it isn't maintaining the status quo, because at the present time, if we have a substitute come in with those 13, then they actually get a right to vote. Now, as I understood what the solicitor was saying, you'd have a right to put your position there, but not a right to vote. So what you're really saying from this is that in actual fact, you would take away any authority on determining planning from 3/4 of our councillors. because if they don't have a right to vote, they have no more right than a parish council to come and talk and address you. So I strongly oppose this. I think when we did our alterations, we reduced from 3 planning committees to 1. The one thing we made sure always that any ward councillor had a right to go and vote on an issue that was in his ward. And I still strongly feel for that. You know, I wait to see what comes out from this working group, but I do think it's a vast reduction in the ability of councillors to influence planning conditions.
Chairman, on a point of information, Chairman,
yes, Councillor
if we are going to discuss it now, then it rather makes my amendment pointless because
Indeed.
we'll go through the whole process again. Chairman, might I suggest that we simply send it to the working party and then it's going to come back to council again? Otherwise, we're going round and round in circles.
Well, at the moment, we appear to have what I thought was quite a workable situation to take a vote on.
Take the vote.
So I'm going to move that we take the vote. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Chairman. So to be clear, members, the vote, as I now understand it, is that the other items you are voting that I do proceed to implement, but the item in paragraph 3.9 about the planning committee changes are left and go back to a working party first.
Happy with that.
Again, in chat or sorry, hands up if you could indicate if you are against the motion. Any abstentions? That's carried then, Chairman. I will implement the other 3 and planning will go to the working party.
Excellent. Thank you. On we go to item 15, constitutional appointments, etc.
Okay.
Over to you, Councillor
Thank
Davis.
you, Chair. And bearing in mind the time, I should be extremely brief, and I shall read out a list of the executive appointments and then suggestions for the scrutiny panel and committee chairs en masse, if that's okay with you.
Fine by me.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to thank my executive colleagues. I would continue as leader of the council. Mike Bell will be deputy leader of the council and executive member for adult services, health and housing. Councillor Steve Bridger will be the executive member for assets and capital delivery. Councillor Mark Caniford will be the executive member for placemaking and economy. Councillor Ash Cartman, the executive member for corporate services. Councillor Catherine Gibbons, the executive member for children's services and lifelong learning. Councillor Bridget Petty, the executive member for climate emergency and engagement. And Councillor Mike Solomon, the executive member for neighbourhoods and community services, and will be assisted by 2 assistant executive members undertaking project work under executive members, and those are Councillor Nicola Holland, who will be working first on post-COVID education and skills, and Councillor Robert Payne, who will be joining us to look at parking strategy. In the light of those changes, I'd like to thank both Councillors James Tonkin and Jeff Richardson for their work with us over the last year or so, and as a result of that, announced these panel and committee chairs for the renamed Partnerships, Corporate Organisation and Overview Management Policy and Scrutiny Panel, Jeff Richardson. For the Children and Young People's Services Policy and Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Wendy Griggs. For the Adult Services and Housing Policy and Scrutiny, Councillor Mark Crosby. For the Health Overview Policy and Scrutiny Panel, Councillor Kieran Cronley. For the Place Policy and Scrutiny Panel, Councillor John Crockford-Hawley. For the Audit Committee, Councillor John Cato. For the Planning and Regulatory Committee, Councillor James Tonkin. For the Licensing Committee, Councillor Andy Cole. I will continue as the chair of the Employment Committee, and for the Public Rights of Way Committee, that will be under Councillor Anne Harley. Any others that aren't mentioned on that list that I've missed, so I apologise, will remain as is. So I look to a proposer in terms of the chairs. I will ask, as previously, the vice chairs be agreed at the meeting, first meeting of each of those committees and panels. Can I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, seconded, Chairman. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Shall we go straight to the vote then?
Yeah, can I just, Chairman, can I just, well, Chairman, can I just say something? I've got my hand up. It's just, sorry, Leader, but you went through it so quickly, which was very difficult. Interesting, not that I'm complaining. I've been named on public rights of way, but I didn't know anything about it. Nobody contacted me.
Well, Anne, as you can see from the majority of there's been very few changes in the existing membership. If you don't wish to take that forward,
No,
Anne,
I didn't say that.
know.
I didn't. No, I did not say that. Let's correct it. I just want. It would have been nice, you know, in transparency, to sort of just talk to me, you know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there anybody else wishing to say anything?
Yes,
No?
Chairman.
Oh,
You
sorry,
have
somebody.
yes, Chairman. You have Councillor Crockford Hawley.
Councillor Crockford Hawley.
Thank you, Chairman. I think this is in danger of being nodded through, and I don't think we're actually looking at all of the ramifications as perhaps we ought to. I mean, executive members and holders of scrutiny chairs are in office by little more than the mathematics of party achievement and hopefully more than a touch of ability. When things go wrong, as they will, for they always do, we seek to apportion blame, and I emphasise apportion rather than shoulder. And one easy target of blame, of course, is the system under which we and all politicians work. And in so doing, we reorganise and then we hope to do better. Actually, I don't think our executive members are doing too badly given the dire circumstances in which we've all had to live this past year. And I emphasise not doing too badly. From what I've been able to glean, I suspect we're about to create a huge placemaking and economy portfolio, which I think will be all-embracing, demanding of abilities wider than any individual councillor possesses. We're in danger of creating a potentially clumsy Leviathan. The creation of flimsy assistant executive positions for no reason other than offering sops to small parties at £7,203 a shot is, I think, quite indefensible. It was indefensible when the previous administration ran the council. It is indefensible today. And I have yet to see any justification for these positions. And indeed, I've yet to hear any current executive member ask for those positions to be created. I trust we will not add to this nonsense by offering even more money for non-jobs, such as the chair of licensing, which at 3 meetings a year is not exactly strength sapping. Chairman, we need to discuss this, not nod it through.
I well remember at the meeting in 2019, Councillor Bell pointing out that Councillor Davis was effectively supreme autocrat of North Somerset. That's the situation that we have got. That's the situation we're in. It was the situation before, and it is still the situation. So, is there any wish for further debate on these dispositions?
There are no more hands up or comments in chat, Chairman. Oh, Councillor Cherry has just put her hand up, Chairman.
I'll take Councillor Cherry.
Having heard John's poignant remarks, I actually think he's got a serious point. I think we probably should have spent a bit more time looking at some of these positions. Well, the amounts of power within each collection. And also, I think one of the things that we may have to do in our council is try and ensure that scrutiny is adequately done, so that we don't have people within certain groups who've already got a role somewhere else marking their own homework effectively. So I am a bit concerned about it. I'm not sure it should be discussed in this meeting. Maybe perhaps it could go through something like SPEDA or somewhere where we could just discuss things more privately? Thank you.
I think this is something that needs to be discussed in the open, and we will find a way to do so via our scrutiny committees, doubtless. Okay, so
Chairman,
is there anybody else who wishes to say anything?
Yeah, yes, Chairman, Councillor Bell.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just take the opportunity to repeat my remarks that you alluded to from a previous year, and that is that the constitution of the council requires the leader, who is elected for a 4-year period, to form an executive and allocate portfolios, and that is what the leader of council has done. So he has fulfilled his constitutional duties. It is then for full council to approve the nominations of the panel chairman. There is nothing further to debate in this forum at the moment in that sense, is there? So I think it's constitutionally quite straightforward. There are plenty of points that were raised that may or may not be legitimate, but this is not the moment to discuss them, is it? Because actually constitutionally, you cannot change any of it, even if you wanted to. So it's a bit of a pointless discussion, but I'm sure that we've all heard and taken on board the comments that have been made. I just move that we take the vote, Chairman.
Yeah. We've got, I'll take one more comment. Councillor Codling.
Yeah, thank you, except that, you know, nothing can change the Constitution this evening, and it may not be the place to debate it, but I'd like to know where it is. I pleaded for transparency when I asked questions about this previously. And confusion was feigned, so it would be good to have a decent, robust, maybe off camera, have a discussion and just increase understanding so that we got that transparency. I'd be grateful.
I'm sure if there's pressure for that, it will occur. We are not a dictatorship after all. Right, so we will move to a vote. Over to you, Nick.
Chairman, as before, members, please. Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just note that it is 8:01, and that therefore the additional items that were to take place after the council meeting, if there was time, will not take place tonight. So we will move on to item 16, the municipal calendar.
Chairman, hopefully this is a easier item for you. The calendar has been presented to members before in November as a draft. We're now putting it forward for your formal vote on the municipal calendar for the year. The only date that is changed is the one that was scheduled for the May council meeting, which obviously we have now cancelled and brought forward that annual meeting.
Okay, I'd like to propose that, please, Mr. Chairman. Do I find a seconder? I've got Councillor, I can see Ruth Jacobs' hand up. Thank you, Ruth.
Right. Anybody wish to say anything?
Nothing, Chairman. Oh, Councillor Crewe.
Oh, Councillor Crewe wants to say something.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor
Just
Crewe.
one small one. The middle week of July, we have the new replacement to SPED, COCO and Planning and Council all in the same week. If someone could look at that, and maybe the week before there's no meetings, the week after there's only one, so maybe look at spreading those a little bit.
Yeah, I think that can be taken on board.
That can be accommodated by the committee chairman. If you approve the calendar tonight, any changes can be invoked by the committee chairs, and presumably they can discuss that with their committees first.
Yeah. Is that okay,
Thank
Councillor
you.
Crewe? Yeah. Okay, in which case we will move to a vote. And again, it will be en bloc.
Any against? Abstentions? None, Chairman. Carried.
Good. Okay, so item 17, appointments to outside bodies 2021-22.
Chairman, again, hope fairly easy item. The list of outside body appointments is before you. All I'm looking for are any changes from group leaders. The one I would flag for you is the police and crime panel. Normally that follows on political balance for the panel, which is calculated across the region. So with the pending elections in first week of May, I'm suggesting that council delegates to the group leaders to nominate to this council's appointments on that body once the political allocation has been worked out following the elections by the panel, and we are told how many of which political groupings they require for us to appoint. So if we could leave that one until we know what is being asked of us, and then allow the group leaders to nominate from their groups. Any other changes, I'd be grateful for tonight.
Got some hands raised, so Hazel, can I have the order?
Yes, Chairman. I think, well, Councillor Bell is the only hand up at the moment.
Thank you, Chairman. You're on mute, Chairman, but I'll jump in anyway. I haven't got any changes, and I'm very happy with the list as is and the suggestions in terms of the police and crime panel. I was just going to mention that obviously we also just voted earlier to create a mental health champion role. So if that could be added to the list, and again, after we've all right, Ruth. After we've consulted with the HOS panel, if that appointment could be confirmed by the group leaders as well at a later date, I think that would tidy that one up so that we can move forward on that post as well.
Happy to take that, Chairman.
Chairman, Councillor
Anybody
Gibbons. Yes, Councillor Gibbons has also asked to speak.
Councillor Gibbons.
No, it's okay. It's been covered, so I don't need to speak. Thank you. I was going to say about the mental health champion as well.
Yeah, so I believe we can move to the vote on this as well. So over to you, Nick.
I don't think you need to, Chairman, unless I receive any changes. I think the list stays as is. If there are any subsequent changes, if group leaders could let me know.
Excellent, good.
Chairman, if I could, sorry, I should have said with the constitutional changes, executive member changes, I believe are taking effect as of now. But because we've got planning and audit this week, can we change the committee panels as of a week from today, so that the current membership and the current agendas can sort themselves out? Otherwise, we'll have Sue and her team having to resend agendas to lots of different members.
Right, fine. That makes sense. Does everybody pick up on that?
Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Okay. On we go then to item 18.
That one's just for noting, unless there are any questions, Chairman.
That's presented, Chair, so that's noting.
Good. And policy and scrutiny panel report, there is none. Corporate parenting responsibilities, Councillor Gibbons.
Thank you, Chairman. It's me again. Yes. Shall I go ahead?
Yep.
Right. I wasn't sure whether you could hear me. I had a sort of blip on my computer. Yeah, I've actually will endeavour to be brief and not go through all the detail that's in the report about the review that is taking place, the independent review of children's social care, and it's been brought to you as corporate parents, not just as the members of the corporate parent panel, but every single councillor is a corporate parent and also a champion for children in our authority area. So it's been brought for your attention to read through so that you're aware of what's going on and the themes that it will focus on, what support's needed to meet the needs of children who are referred to social care, how to strengthen families, and what can be done so that children who need care can get it quickly and feel safe. We look at the care, the delivery of it, the sustainability and the accountability. So it's going to be a very important review. I do hope all members have read this and possibly gone to the links and looked at all the detail. I'd like to take this opportunity also to touch on a couple of other matters around the corporate parenting responsibilities we have. And I'd like to thank Councillor Tim Snaden, who was or is the chair of the corporate parenting panel. But we've heard a lot about COVID and long COVID this evening, and he is one of our members who has suffered from COVID and suffered from long COVID. And as a result, he's taken a bit of a step back for a few months in order to recover properly. And in his place, Councillor Lisa Pilgrim has stepped in because she has enormous experience in the corporate parenting arena, and she is taking over as chair of the corporate parenting panel. So I'd like to thank her for that. And it kind of gives me the opportunity to say that in this council, in the children's services area and all things to do with young people, I'm particularly pleased as lead member to see the amazing cross-party work that we have in our team, if you like, of elected members. We have Councillor Griggs as the chair of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Panel. We have, as I said, Councillor Pilgrim. We have myself, and we are now able to welcome Councillor Nicola Holland as a supporting role as an assistant executive member, where she'll be doing a piece of work for me around the consultation we plan for young people to inform us of their vision for skills and education for the future. So I think it's really, really positive that we're all working together, and it shows how this council has taken children's services and all things to do with children and young people to the core of everything it does. And I would say that as councillors, I think just as we have it written into all our decisions that there's an equality assessment, there's climate impact assessment, we don't have one for assessment on how it affects young people and children. But I would ask you, in all the decisions you make on other panels, in everything you do, always to have that at the back of your mind and think about what we're doing now. How is that going to impact children? How is it going to impact young people and families? On that note, I've got a couple of things. Sorry,
carry on.
Yeah, and a couple of other things I'd like to note. I have sent you this evening, once again, all of you, a copy of the Corporate Parenting Guide, which contains within it the Council's pledge and an outline of what you as councillors, as ward councillors, and those of you who hold special responsibilities pledge to do. This time last year, we had hoped to actually create a physical pledge that we would have asked you all to sign. But of course, we've stopped having actual meetings and we haven't been able to meet face to face. So we still want you to actually sign up to your pledge as a councillor in your role as a corporate parent. So what I'm asking is, as we don't have electronic signatures for all of you, if anybody actively does not want to sign the pledge, please let me know. Otherwise, we will assume that you are happy to physically put your name to the pledge as a corporate parent and as a councillor. And that will come to you in due course. Equally, we've done a lot of training over the past few months about children's services and about corporate parenting, which many of you have taken part in. And you've decided, or we've been working on a way of recognising the work that you've put in. And so those of you who have attended all these training sessions will be getting an in-house North Somerset certificate, which will, recognise the amount of work you've put in to become a children's champion and a corporate parent. If anybody hasn't attended the training courses and the information sessions we've had about children's services, just please let me know, and let's get some numbers and see if we can run further sessions. I think it would be wonderful to have a council which had most of its members recognised as trained corporate parents and champions for children in their wards and across the authority.
Can I request, please, that people mute when they're not speaking, as we were getting a bit of background there. I think what I'm conscious of as far as corporate parenting responsibilities and a lot of the other issues that form Councillor Gibbons' executive area of responsibility is that they are hatched round by central government requirements and legislation.
Indeed,
we have to do things. We have to do things in the same way as pretty much everybody else has to do things, and we are accountable specifically for those things.
Yes, we have
anyway
an enormous number of statutory obligations and duties. Yes.
Yeah. So, is there any debate wanted on this?
Or any questions?
Yep.
Councillor Harley, yes.
Question from Councillor
Yes,
Harley. Over
yes,
to you,
Chairman. I know it's very late, and I apologise for that. And I realise there's lots of statutory details that we have to take on board. I think anybody would accept that the previous administration had to do the same, and we lived with it. I really want clarification about this report, actually, because I sit on the Corporate Parenting Committee, which was the Children's Champions, and I'm one of those people that did not want it changed. I wanted it to be identified still as Children's Champions. And I don't need anybody to tell me that I've got to do this, that or the other, because I've been doing it for 21 years. I have been actively involved with children. I don't need government guidance or anything. I've done it without anybody knowing about it, and it's always been very personal. So what concerns me about this, and I have to tell you, concerns me deeply, is the fact that it looks to me that this report is purely policy and it's not been scrutinised. So in actual fact, as far as I can see, is that the corporate parenting responsibilities and the corporate parenting panel no longer, in my opinion, has that responsibility to actually scrutinise and try and create a policy that should go forward to the executive member to address or otherwise refuse. And I really do feel that this has been taken out. And if somebody wants to tell me that this is government legislation, I would take it up with the government. But I do feel that this is a big concern that, quite frankly, I can't agree with.
Councillor Gibbons, if you wish to answer.
Yes, well, 2 points. Firstly, the corporate parenting panel isn't a scrutiny panel.
I didn't say it was.
You said you wanted it scrutinised.
I said it should be scrutinised because I said it should be scrutinised.
Can we talk through the chair, please? If you can allow Councillor Gibbons to answer.
And secondly, this is a report highlighting a piece of, well, it's an independent review of children's social care launched by the government. So it's a piece of information for us as corporate parents to be aware of something that the government is undertaking and for us to keep our eyes on, actually.
So why did this not come out to us before?
Before when?
Well, it came out in these papers. So I'm asking the question, really, for you, Catherine, to address of where we stand, in my opinion, as a corporate parent committee.
Can I make
and a scrutiny panel? Because, we can't all work. We've got to work together.
You're asking about the corporate parenting and the scrutiny panel, because
I'm
talking about corporate parenting, not.
Yes, through the chair.
Well,
can I please make a suggestion? Councillor Harley, can you please put your questions and concerns in a written form to Councillor Gibbons and send it to her, and I'm sure that she will respond in good time.
Absolutely.
And if there are any further concerns that you wish to bring up as a result of that, I'm sure that can be done at a future meeting. I do not see any point in carrying forward your specific points in this meeting. Anyway, I will therefore ask or state that the corporate parenting responsibilities be noted, and we will move on to item 21. We've been going for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I am proposing a comfort break of 3 minutes. So we will stop the meeting here and we can take advantage of the gap in time. And we're off. Okay, so on to item 21, which is time limited to 20 minutes. And I will be keeping an eye on the time. So we were asked to, we've had 3 questions. We'll take them as read, and I will turn to Councillors Willis, Ashton and Bryant. First off with Councillor Willis, to see if you've got a supplementary question. I've got to ask the executive members to respond.
Okay,
they will be responding, as I understand it, in written form.
Well, can I just clarify, please, Chair?
Over to you.
Because clearly, with the announcement I made on the makeup of the of the executive moving forward. Certainly in terms of question 1, 2, and indeed 3, there are different people who will be responsible for those. In terms of questions 1 and 2, there will be a written response made to the councillors who've asked those questions. So thank you, Councillor Ashton. Thank you, Councillor Willis. For the question from Councillor Bryant, I was going to make a slightly different request that we submit that to the working group on planning, because I do think it's a very, very key point he makes, and I think quite a lot of us, I'm sure, will agree from personal experience. So, Peter, I was going to suggest that I pass that to John Crockford Hawley's working group on the planning review to be incorporated in their response to that, if you're happy with that response.
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
Thank you.
That seems to make perfect sense. So, on that understanding, then, are there any supplementary questions?
Yes.
So, who's the first one from? Councillor? Who have we got? Hazel? Who's indicating?
Oh, I'm sorry, I put my hand up, Councillor Ashton.
Ah, sorry, Nigel, I didn't see it. So,
Right.
Councillor Ashton, supplementary.
A bit difficult to ask a supplementary when you haven't had the answer yet. So I'll try and fudge a question out of a statement in that case, because it was about the occasion on 20 MPH schemes that you actually need to have physical restrictions as well, especially if the average speed is well over the 24 that you're supposed to have on average. It's not always necessary, but it is sometimes. And so I was surprised, to say the least, that when I was told by an officer that the policy had been to reduce the effectiveness of the speed cushions that were installed in a recent scheme because of the number of insurance claims because of tyres being damaged and the actual speed cushion being damaged because traffic wasn't slowing down enough in the 20 MPH scheme. Well, that's the whole point of having the restrictions there in the first place, to reduce them in profile to be absolutely worthless. Really makes a mockery of having a 20 MPH scheme there. So if we're going to roll these out, and my first question is about being done on safety reasons, then we really ought to be looking to, where necessary to put in these physical restrictions, that they are effective. Otherwise, it's just costing an awful lot of money for no good at all. And why is that the policy? That's the question then. Why is that the policy, as I was told?
Yeah, I'm sure that you will get an answer to that in the
Yes, I think there's a technical question you're asking me, Nigel, which I wouldn't want to try and second guess here. So I'll add that to the list, to the response we send through to you.
But yeah, it's policy, not technical from officers. Why is it the policy?
Well, I mean, if we want to speak in very general terms, actually,
the chair,
the DFT issues guidance, and if you go to places like Bath and North East Somerset, they apply that guidance a different way to the way we've applied it in North Somerset. So I think there is a degree of professional consideration around the policy application, and clearly that's one of the things we need to do. I think I'm very pleased that we are rolling out, as you say, under local guidance schemes, but we need to make sure the schemes are viable, but equally not overly draconianly difficult to be implemented.
Sure.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any further supplementary questions?
Yes, I'd like to put one, please. Councillor Bryant.
Right.
With regards to this particular, right, currently in planning enforcement, there are 170 cases they are currently reviewing at this very moment, with just 5 officers to carry out the work and write up the necessary reports. Is it any wonder they are unable to visit active building sites for many weeks where development is progressing without the knowledge of the authority? Please will you also reflect the impact on planning officers who diligently arrive at conclusions for every application of either approval or refusal, and yet occasionally being faced with a part build or completed development which under normal circumstances would be refused permission, but fearing exorbitant costs at a full inquiry, they're almost compelled to find reasons for approval. In fairness, and this is the crux, in fairness to officers, shouldn't we endeavour to reduce this flawed practice, which of course will mean extra employees? Thank you.
Shall I answer that, Don?
Well, I'm quite happy to answer it.
Who's wanting to answer?
Chairman, if I can answer that, as the questions asked to planning.
Yes, yeah, okay, Councillor Bell, if you wish
Caniford.
to answer that one.
Caniford.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Caniford.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I did have an answer for the other questions regarding the peer review for you. Yeah, we know that the planning office has a huge caseload. I don't think that's been a secret for many a year. And what part of that problem, as you well know, is the equal high expectations of the public to that department. And the fact is, the resources over the last decade or so, including now, have not simply been good enough. And we have not been able to, under the years of austerity, be able to put the amounts of staff into that department that we clearly would like to.
Yeah.
The peer review, of course, and I now in that post will certainly look at that situation, because I, as well as you, been around a fair while now and understand the pressures the planning staff and the enforcement staff are working under. Yeah. And we need to find a better way of enforcement, not a better way of enforcement, but a better way of supporting our enforcement officers and making sure that we haven't got them running around in circles. The fact is, the approach we currently use is consistent with government guidance. You know, we have to be proportionate. We have to try and negotiate on minor issues, and we have to avoid trivial and technical breaches, as you well know. And I have to ask you the question: we're in the position we are. You could probably tell me why we only have 5 officers rather than me trying to tell you.
Well,
I'd be delighted to answer that. Could I just, Chairman,
make the point here? No, I'm not going to allow you to answer.
Okay.
I think we've had I can see hands going up, and I'm not going to allow this to move into a general debate. It's clear that the questions have been asked and that you will receive answers to them, written answers. So I'm going to move on now to item 22. So item 22, report and matters referred from the executive. There are none. Item 23, reports and matters referred from the policy overview and scrutiny panels. We've got one from the strategic planning, economic development and regeneration policy and scrutiny panel. So the active travel strategy, and I'm going to move forward onto that one because it's forward past that one because it relates to item 26, which covers it, I believe. So item 24, reports and matters referred from the other committees. There are none. Item 25, reports on joint arrangements and external organisations and questions relating thereto. We've got one from the Avon Fire Authority, a report from Councillor Jacobs, which was published with the agenda, which I'm sure you've all read, and that is to be noted. There's nothing from Avon and Somerset Police and Crime Panel and nothing from the West of England Joint Scrutiny Panel. So on we go to item 26, adoption of the North Somerset Active Travel Strategy, which has been published with the agenda. I am going to read out the following statement. In the light of the decision to withdraw a recent traffic regulation order to provide residents and road users with more opportunities to help shape the quiet rural lanes proposals around Nailsea, Clevedon and Yatton, items 26 and 26.1 active travel strategy has been withdrawn from this evening's agenda and will be reconsidered at a future council meeting. North Somerset Council is committed to growing, walking and cycling to improve public health, tackle the climate emergency, support the economy and help shape our future planning. Following more engagement on the quiet rural lanes proposal, which will be announced shortly, the active travel strategy will be brought back to council for full consideration. I intend to move straight to item 27, as this matter will be debated at a future meeting. And on we go to item 27, updating the Creating Sustainable Buildings and Places supplementary planning document, which has been published with the agenda. And I believe that the leader is going to advise which executive member is going to present.
Councillor Mark Caniford.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation as printed. I'll be brief with the information, but as most of you will know, this is an updated version of the 2015 SPD. It has to change because we've passed a climate emergency, and therefore the proposed amendments in this document now are to support our objectives of a council to go carbon neutral by 2030. So it really just reflects a changing guidance nationally. It also pushes up to level 4 energy performance standards or better, which is 19% better than we currently have. And it also will require non-residential to use BREEAM or an equivalent level of energy conservation. The renewable energy requirements is a minimum, and this is additional. So what we're putting in here is additional to that. And I ask that we take on these revisions. I think there's just a couple of things worth noting if you've had a chance to go through the full report. Persimmon Homes have actually quoted. They welcome this updated SPD and support the council's direction towards a level home for climate emergency purposes. So I think if we've got a home builder like Persimmon Homes supporting this, I think we must have got this right. I have asked officers just to look at one addition, and that is in 1.1 of the actual document. And unless anyone has a strong feeling against it on council, I'm not overly precious, but I do believe one of the things that we should be looking for is building stronger communities with facilities, because we pretty much covered everything else in that. So I asked council to support this.
Do we have a seconder? I can see Councillor Bridget Petty with her hand up, so I'm taking that as a seconder. Bridget, would you wish to speak?
Yes, I would actually. This has been a piece of work that I've been very committed to for a long time, pretty much since I came into post, because one of the aspects that, so when we've taken on this responsibility of acting on the climate emergency, we're all very aware that there are limits to how far the role of the council can go. So there are many things that need to be decided by government. There are many things that each business will have to make its own decision on, and every household will make its own decision on how it chooses to behave in its purchasing choices. What the council does have an influence on is obviously our planning department. And of course, there are still national guidelines, but I was really heartened to work with the officer team to try to push this document as far as we could. And I'm delighted that it went out to consultation, and I understood that it didn't have resistance, which we might have anticipated. So I'm really pleased with the way that our officers took this agenda, this important piece of work, pushed it to the limits of what I understood we can do within current legislation, and delivered a document that I hope will shape housing and buildings in the future in North Somerset. And that is one of the ways that this council can act to take real action on climate change at this time. So that's one of the reasons that I applaud this document and thank the officers for the work done so far.
Okay, I've got, I believe, one councillor who wishes to say something, and that's Steve Bridger. Steve.
And Councillor Hearn. Apologies, Chairman, but Councillor Hearn also.
Oh, Councillor Hearn as well. So we'll take Steve Bridger first, and then Councillor
I think Sandra was ahead of me, Chair.
Oh,
but,
sorry.
So welcome to defer. Let Sandra go first.
Sandra, do you want to go first?
Yes, please. Thank you. Today, the government announced that the UK was to cut its carbon emissions by 78% by 2035. Now, the document mentions 20. Sorry, I've got feedback. 2050 or thereabouts. Are we as a council now going to insist on new developments installing low carbon heating, higher grade installation, renewable electricity, as well as electrical car charging points to meet this target?
Yeah, can't hear.
You're muted, Richard. Sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It's getting late. Yes. No. Do we have an answer on that one, or is that something that we should note and wish to?
Chairman, if I may,
push forward.
I did ask a similar question when I had a quick brief yesterday about this paper, and that will be addressed. That can't be addressed with this, but it will be addressed in the next local plan whilst as we're dealing with it now.
Good. I'm very encouraged with the developments that the council itself has control or influence over, in that we are in the main looking for carbon negative developments, the stuff that we've got direct control over. And I think we should broaden that approach. Okay, so Councillor Bridger.
Thank you, Chair. I know it's late, so I just wanted to take a few seconds just to pick out one detail actually in the updated SPD to which reflects, I think, on the priorities with the climate emergency. Just to pick up on what Councillor Caniford and Petty were saying. So this whole document came through scrutiny. It's been through scrutiny a few times, I think. In the Waste Scrutiny Steering Group, we looked at the waste management section 3.21 to be precise, and we picked up on a point. I think we all know it's quite trendy these days for developers to set up management companies when they bring forward planning applications in some cases. And then it's for that management company to then organise private waste collections, which makes absolutely no sense because you've got basically extra vehicles running around the district emitting what they emit. We should now have more leverage, given that we've got North Somerset Environment Company in operation. So in that section, we added in some wording which basically said that developers must work closely with the local authority to implement schemes which use council-supported curbside and recycling collection services. I think that's really, really important that's now in an SPD. So, it's a minor detail, and there will be lots of other different examples sprinkled in this updated document. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of members. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bridger. Is there anybody else to speak?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Ashton has asked to speak.
Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Chairman. I may have missed a bit because it cut out at the beginning, so apologies if this was covered. All are pleased to have higher quality, higher levels of building in our estate. That's great. The problem we had in the past with this is that developers unfortunately said, well, if you want that higher quality, then you don't get so many affordable houses, and you don't get the infrastructure and some of the facilities that you actually need to make a place. Not quite so difficult where we've owned the land, which is why we did it in the first place. But the majority is still going to be made by developers who will argue to the nth degree that they can't possibly afford higher standards and 30% affordable and an extra library or an extra classroom that we try and negotiate under 106. How will you deal with that if you're setting a standard that you will insist on some but not on others because you'll be trying to do 106 agreements?
Yeah.
I don't know I'm not sure who that should be aimed at, whether it's Councillor Petty or Councillor Caniford. I'd like to see Mark Caniford struggle with that, and so ask him.
Well, that's fine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we just argue it, don't we? As we've done in the past. The fact is, we tell them what they get this document. They know this document. If you look at the document, the big house builders are very in favour of it now. They like what has been put together here. They're not arguing with it, and therefore you would want to assume that they're happy to support that. Now, I think you, as well as I know, that 106 agreements have been wrangled over for the last, since they started, 30 years or whatever it was. Yeah. And I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that they'll continue to wrangle over them because they want to make as much profit as these private companies can. But they have to stop making those huge profits and start investing a little bit in the damaged environment that they've been creating with house building that has been completely uncontrolled. They need to start creating the right environment for people to live in. You made the point. We need really good homes, really good places to live, and that's what we need to try and achieve.
Yeah, can I just round this off, hopefully? I was going to put a motion forward to do with the old Parker Morris standards on room sizes, which used to be a national requirement. That's been diluted so that it is now, a local matter, or it's dealt with locally. What we need is direction from the centre. That would then enable economies of scale. If all local authorities had to insist on the same standards, then that would change the playing field. So back to central government yet again. But, we're in this for the long game, most of us. Anyway, I think that we need to vote on that one, Nick?
Chairman, apologies, but Councillor Crockford-Hawley has his hand up as well.
Right, OK, I'll take one more comment then. Councillor Crockford-Hawley.
Only to say, Chairman, we're in danger of making some sweeping generalisations, and this is not the right form, or this is not the right place to be doing it.
Absolutely, and yours is the right forum, hopefully, John. So on we go then.
We tend to know what we're talking about, so do send it to us.
Indeed. On we go to take the vote. Over to you.
Chairman, you're voting to adopt this is as council policy, so that's the vote. Any against? None, Chairman. Any abstentions? Okay, none. So that's carried, Chairman. Thank you.
That's carried. I see I've got a raised hand there. Jeff Richardson.
Sorry, Chair. I was just confirming that I missed part of the debate, so I would abstain.
Right. A sort of legacy hand. Yeah. OK. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Well, on we go then to item 28. We've already dealt with that. Item 29, urgent business. There is none. And finally, at 14 minutes to 9, I can declare the meeting closed.